Alrighty everyone, we are now in the last week of February and we are getting closer to the first episode of The Mandalorian Season 3, which by the way debuts on March 1st. That's really going to set up this new universe by John, George, and Dave. The Disney CEO Bob Iger, along with the Disney, of course, higher-ups, such as the board members, are really embracing Star Wars Celebration with all the upcoming announcements as well. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. Now, given that we have a lot of things happening at once between all these different Star Wars projects, be it TV shows, movies, and books, and comics, and the like, that's really going to bring everything together. We know that just today, or yesterday, Jon Favreau talked a little bit about The Mandalorian Season 4, as well as his ambitions for the future. We already know that Jon openly stated about a month ago that if Mando 4 proves to be wildly successful, he is planning on stopping the series at a Season 6, giving it that Cobra Kai format. And what I mean by that is, Cobra Kai is ending everything at a Season 6, and that's the whole story. So, where we stand today is a very interesting time, because we are just days away from Mando Season 3 dropping on Disney Plus to finally see what John and Dave have in store for the very beginning of how Star Wars is going to be respected in a better light by Disney and handled in a very different manner throughout this entire year and next year. Of course, excluding Skeleton Crew because that's a Kathleen Kennedy-driven project. Now, moving on about what recently happened with Kathleen Kennedy, speaking about her right now, has a lot to do with how Disney board members, including Bob Iger, made a very big decision, a very big call to essentially get rid of her out of a specific Star Wars project. Now, with Kathleen Kennedy getting into more trouble recently by Disney higher-ups and the board members, she recently met up with some consequences based on her actions with Skeleton Crew in the Acolyte series. Now, just recently, Bob Iger and the board made a very detailed decision that has now been finalized to finally fire Kathleen Kennedy as a producer from The Mandalorian Season 4. Now, initially, Kathleen Kennedy was in control of the funding and finances of that season. However, since John and Dave obtained new privileges, they now have control over that, and that Bob Iger is aiming to make Jon Favreau the new producer of Mando 4 once they begin filming to replace Kathleen Kennedy. Now, this is one of the bigger steps that Bob Iger created before he plans to fire her completely by this August. The main reason why the higher-ups decided to actually fire Kennedy from Mando 4 as a producer had a lot to do with the fact that she wanted to drastically reduce the budget of the series and to make it smaller scale, which would have only resulted in the use of poor concepts and techniques in filmmaking. Now, let me pause right here for a second before we get to the next big bit. Now, we know that Kathleen Kennedy wanted nothing to do with George Lucas's philosophy in the Mandalorian series, nor did she want a lot of cameos in the Mandoverse. Something that John and Dave, by the way, are doing with Mando Season 4. We're going to have a lot of Luke in there, a lot of Ahsoka, a lot of other characters like Ezra and Thrawn. It's going to be a very big deal. It's going to have a lot of connections to the Ahsoka Tano series and a lot more on top of that. The thing that bothers me the most here is how Kathleen Kennedy was going to literally lower the budget of Mando 4 and make it smaller scale than Mando Season 3. And it just goes to really kind of show you a contrast of Kathleen Kennedy's, vision and George Lucas's vision that's being handed down to John and Dave. And it just really kind of opens your eyes a little bit as to what her true intentions really are. So listen, I'm glad that Bob Iger stepped forward and said, yeah, this is not happening, and he got rid of her as a producer. And this is just the beginning. He's been doing this on and off, show by show by show, getting rid of a producer one by one and replacing her with somebody else. This is a very big deal because we know that Kathleen Kennedy has been a producer for many shows and movies before in the past, and now finally there is a transition that is taking place piece by piece. So the thing about this that I think is a great victory is that Now you have Jon and Dave really, getting all these privileges as they have been, and they already have throughout the month of February here, over at Lucasfilm, calling the shots more on the finances and the budgets of these upcoming projects, which is good news. So anyways, moving forward, Disney was very unhappy with Kennedy's approach to that, and especially after her issues with Skeleton Crew and the Acolyte, they decided to pull her off the show right away. Now, Disney right now is trying to decide if they want Favreau as the new producer or somebody else in order to give Jon more freedom with his writing. As of now, it's a big, tense situation for Kennedy losing this project before they plan to get rid of her for good at Lucasfilm. Now, the other side of the story is this, is that we know that Kathleen Kennedy is getting very desperate, getting very much defensive over her work after what happened with the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew and the test footage of those shows not being accepted and not being in favor of Disney's vision. They were not happy with what she put out there, and they are having her initiate more reshoots on both Skeleton Crew and the Acolyte. So that's not good news. That's a very big problem. Now, when you look at it in that light, too, you have somebody like Kathleen Kennedy trying to convince the fans that you don't need George Lucas, that you don't need his philosophy. And I think that is what's going to be very broken with the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew. That's what's really going to make it feel so stale and very flat and not connecting with the fans properly. That's the problem that Disney's going to run into. So this was a great move. I think that this is something that was much needed, something that is only the beginning about what's to come in the coming months by Disney and Lucasfilm, and what they actually truly plan to do for Lucasfilm as a company. We already know that Jon and Dave are really changing the overall image of the company. They are cleaning up house. They are firing some of the older creatives that were more loyal to Kennedy and replacing them with others. And this is happening at a very slow pace, but it is happening. And we will be covering it bit by bit throughout this year. So it is a big makeover. It is a big change. It is a big transition. And it's something that I think is really going to propel Star Wars in a more positive path. Now, that's what they need. They need multiple, consistent shows in a row by, of course, Jon and Dave to really convince fans that Star Wars is indeed back on track, that Star Wars can really, really give something fit for fans to look forward to, and that's all that really matters at the end of the day. So, obviously, there's a lot at play here, there's a lot at work. Kathleen Kennedy losing this project as a producer is probably like the greatest thing, because she was still a producer technically for Mando Season 3, controlling the budget and stuff like that, but now, given that they have more privileges and they have been very unhappy with her work on the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew, that was it for her. That was it. It's over for that. So overall, there's a lot going into Mando 4. They're going to make it very high budget. In fact, Disney plans to double the budget of Mando 4 in comparison to Mando 3. So anyways, guys, fill me in below in the comments. What do you guys have to say about all of this below? And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.